I want you to think about what's holding you back. What is the fear that's holding you back? Is it the fear of the unknown? Is it the fear of being a fraud? Maybe you don't think you're as good at what you do as you think you are. Maybe it's the fear of all the bills that you already have. Maybe you don't have somebody to support you. What's up, everybody? It is Nick Horde, Nick the Marketer, or as we call it today, it is now Nick the Podcaster, because we are launching episode 1 of Nick the Podcaster, also known as Agingpreneur, also known as how can we help the entrepreneur who's stuck in the middle of their life, who's probably in a job, probably in their somewhere in their 35 to maybe 45, 50-year-old, and they know that they're meant to do more with their life than go to a 9-to-5 job, or as it is today, an 8-to-5 job. That's what we're all about here, and that's what we are aiming to do with this podcast. It is episode 1, and it just so happens to be Valentine's Day, and it is a day of first. It is our first podcast. It is our first day to go axe throwing as a team. We went and did that, and I may laugh and joke about that here in a little bit, but it's also a big day in that we hit a huge milestone in business. And I will talk a little bit about our business here in the podcast, but I just wanted to say what an opportunity that we have where we can go out and we can crank up a podcast and we can get our message out into the world and we can make a difference in people's lives. So I'm excited to start the podcast. I'm excited to be here with you, whether you're listening on a treadmill, whether you are listening in your car driving down the road, which is where I go, or however you listen to podcasts. We're glad to have you. Maybe you're watching us on YouTube. Hello, glad to have you. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm 40 years old. We're here in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. I'm looking right out the window right now, and I can see the whole city. Our office overlooks the city, which is why we're in this echo chamber right now. So if you're getting a little bit of an echo, apologies, we will fix that. But I'm 40 years old, from Memphis, Tennessee, moved here with my family about 10 years ago, and at the time worked for a corporation, and just over time decided that it was time for me to start my own company, start my own business, and live what I've felt always has been my dream. And I know that there are other men and women that are out there that have a passion for something. They feel like they're designed to do other things, and you just haven't quite found your niche, or you haven't, if you're anything like me, you haven't quite mustered up the courage to step out on faith, to step out and start what you were meant to do. Or maybe you feel like you're safe in a job. When I started our company, I was 38 years old. So we're going on 2 years now. And when I started Nick the Marketer, 38, 3 children, married, mortgage, car notes, credit card debt, everything that comes along with being a middle-aged person. We were absolutely normal and absolutely average, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, unless you have a dream, unless you have something that you know you're supposed to be doing with your life, and you've settled. So I want to talk to the people in this podcast as we go forward. I want to talk to the people who feel like they've settled. The goal of the podcast is to encourage you. The goal of this is to make sure that you know that there are other people like you. The goal is to make sure that you don't feel alone, that you can ask us questions as we build this thing out, to bring on other people that are like us, that have started in the middle of their journey in life. Maybe they're halfway there, they're 40 like I am, maybe they're 50, maybe they're 30, maybe they're in their 20s, I don't know, but I want to talk to that person who's been out doing the 9-to-5 and now they're ready to kick off. And we're going to do that. We're going to set that in motion with this podcast starting today. A little bit about me. I own a marketing company. So here in Birmingham, we own a digital marketing agency. It's called Nick the Marketer. You can go check that out at nickthemarketer.com. There's a shameless plug for you. But we are in business to help small businesses generate paying customers, and we do it through digital marketing services. That's our core. That's our vision. That's what we do. With that being said, I didn't start there. Okay, I want to give you a little bit about my background and tell a story and let you know how I got from point A to point B, C, D, E, F, and now I'm on like H. You know, when I was growing up, I had 3 specific men in my life that I kind of watched. I wanted to know what they were doing and how they were doing it, and they don't know I was watching them. They may listen to this at some point and be like, I had no idea. Men, you have no idea what the influence you have on your sons. Women, you have no idea what kind of influence you have on your sons. Same with daughters, all of that. With that being said, though, my dad, what a man. My mom and dad are awesome. But my dad worked a career in sales my entire life growing up. And I watched him work his butt off. He worked his tail off. And he would be gone on nights, and he would be gone on weekends, and he would be gone sometimes on birthdays. Let me encourage you guys, that hasn't broken me. I have a great relationship with my dad. But I watched him work his guts out, and today he's retired. He invested wisely. He paid off houses. He paid off cars. He left his career and has comfortably been able to retire. And it's incredibly impressive to see that. So I had a great example of what it is like to find the right career path and to follow that career path out. But here's something very important. I asked my dad what he wanted to do, and he wanted to be a doctor. That's what he wanted to be. And I always wondered why he didn't chase that dream down. And I'm sure there are 100 different reasons for why he didn't do that. But I know that it stuck with him, not necessarily being a doctor, but the fact that he felt he was meant to do something else. And here's the reason I say that. When probably the late 80s, maybe the late 80s, early 90s, my uncle, who's another person we'll talk about in this story, my uncle started a packaging company where they would package ethnic hair care, those kind of things. And my uncle approached my dad and offered him to start the business with him. Now, this is going to resonate with some of you. This is huge because my dad chose not to do that. And I remember him telling me that he didn't do that because he was in the middle of building a house and he had 2 kids and he had a wife and he had these things that caused him to stay where he was. And I think maybe he regrets sometimes not stepping into business. I don't want to put words into his mouth. He may not, but I feel like that is something that, given a different set of circumstances, he would have absolutely jumped on. Okay, that's not a fault of my dad, by the way. Keep in mind, high respect for my dad and what he's been able to accomplish with where he is. Just because you don't step out into entrepreneurship doesn't mean you're going to be a failure. Okay, but with that being said, my uncle started a company and grew this company, and he created this legacy that he was able to pass on to his kids. And that's not a Cinderella story, okay, but he did build a multi-million dollar company that is a worldwide, it's a global company. And I watched these 2 successful paths, and then there was a third person named Wayne who owned an electric company in Memphis when I was growing up. He was my dad's best friend. And he created this successful company all around the same time my dad's doing his thing and my uncle's doing his thing. And he created the successful company, and I watched him do what he did, and then he sold it. He sold it, I don't know, probably 20 years ago, something like that. He sold this company and then took this great payday, I would assume, and still had to work that job ongoing. And I guess my expectation with that is if he sold it, maybe he wasn't passionate about it. So here's the 3 things that I wanted to bring to the table today is, 1, you can work a career and you can create success out of that career. 2, you can start a business and it can become highly successful and it can be your life's work. And 3, you can start a company and you can sell it because maybe you got into the wrong company. Maybe you didn't do your passion. Maybe you didn't do what you were called to do and you started it. Here's the point of that though. If you start something, there's always an out. You can find other things to do. You can go back to your career. You can go back to that safe zone. I want to encourage you, though, to step out of your comfort zone and figure out what your passions are and chase after those passions. So I wanted to throw those things out there, kind of give you a background. I am so excited to start this podcast and see where it goes. And we are going to have visitors and we're going to bring people on. If you have questions, I tell you what, I've got Hannah with me today who she's going to be mixing the podcast and everything. Hannah, who do we need to send emails to? Send them to, okay? We're going to send that to Hannah@nickthemarketer.com. That's HANNAH @nickthemarketer.com. That's where we'll go right now. But any questions that you have about this or anything that you'd like to hear about or maybe things that you're struggling with, I want you to send those emails to Hannah because I remember When I left my previous career was in radio, and I'll get into that in another episode. But when I left that career and stepped into a new career, and then I stepped into owning my own business, I was terrified and I was sick as a dog, literally and physically. So I wound up getting the flu. My love language is physical touch, and my kids and my wife couldn't touch me because they would get sick. And I'm going through this whole fear and process of transitioning from a what would be a nightmare to a dream. I'll say it that way. Man, what a crazy time in my life. And I know some of you guys are going through that. You are going through this right now because you know where you're supposed to be. I had a great opportunity to talk to one of our clients, and I'm not going to name his name or his company, but we had a chance to sit down. He is really good at what he does in his career, but he knows he's supposed to be doing something else. He knows that he's supposed to have his own company, and he sat down with me and he just kind of poured out a little bit. He said, Nick, I work this job. I work for these people. They don't have any vision. They don't know what they're doing. We can be successful there and we can make money, but I don't see this 5-year game plan. I don't see this thing progressing past where it is today. And I know I can do this on my own, and I know I can do it better. And I just feel like if I don't make this move, it's going to tear me up for the rest of my life. He's 43 years old. And he is just like us. He is in a place in his life where he knows he needs to make the change, and it's time to make the change. So here's what I want to do. I want to call to action real quick before we cut out of here. So I want you to think about what's holding you back. What is the fear that's holding you back? Is it the fear of the unknown? Is it the fear of being a fraud? Maybe you don't think you're as good at what you do as you think you are. Maybe it's the fear of all the bills that you already have. Maybe you don't have somebody to support you. This is going to be encouraging for you. When I left and started my own company, my wife was a stay-at-home mom, which is the hardest job on the planet, I might add. But with that being said, she is a stay-at-home mom, and we didn't have 2 incomes. It was just me. So I was out in my career earning our income, and she was at home raising our children, and she's done a fine job at that. But what is the one thing that you can think of that's holding you back? Think about that, and until next time, you guys go out and crush it.